Have you ever had this moment where you just wish that this grief would just shut up and go away? We're going to be talking about that today. And I'm not talking about someone who's died. I'm actually talking about the stuff that you have carried that is absolutely making an impact on you and you need to let go. Stay tuned.
Do you want to know everything? What your heart won't say, but your soul can sing. From love to loss and the space between, she's got the light to lift the unseen. Hope, healing, and transformation. Do you want to know everything? Do you want to know everything?
In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how the grief that we don't want to talk about affects our energy. And, there's so much of it in the world. And so in part of this 8 series podcast, we are going to be talking about the shit that you carry, okay? And this is one of them. We carry grief. Now, you can grieve someone who is still alive. I'm not talking about the grief of your mom has passed away, your daughter's passed away. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the grief that you have been holding on to, all right? When someone is still alive, the relationship that you never had chance to explore. I'm talking about maybe the mother that you have that you wish that you could have had. Instead, you got the narcissistic mom. I'm talking about the grief of the person that you used to be. I'm talking about the grief of everything that you are carrying. I'm talking about the kind of grief that no one wants to talk about. And it's that kind of silent grief that is breaking us. And it's time to stop. Welcome to Hope, Healing, and Transformation. My name is Lisa Williams. And this episode is for you who has been hiding behind this grief. The one that has been hiding behind the smile and the one that's like, oh, everything's fine. I'm fine. How are you? But really, you're not. Because I'm going to say this, my friends. Your energy is going to show up way before you open your mouth and say a word, because that's what happens. Have you ever had that moment where you look at someone and you're like, oh, what's going on with them today? What is actually happening with them? And you look at them and you're like, oh, I don't want to be in that energy. And that is what happens when we are being fake, when we are hiding, when we're not actually wanting to be, seen. And so what we want to do is we want to stop doing that. So we're going to take this gentle moment, this breath together, and it might stir up some emotions that you've buried, because that's what I anticipate and that's what I hope for. But I promise you that this is where healing begins. So we're going to talk about this invisible grief. And I am going to share with you my story, my own stuff, because I don't have to change a name. I don't have to make anybody, invisible. I don't have to get a contract signed. I can share my stuff and it's good. All right. But I'm talking about this invisible grief, the kind that comes from the breakups, the estranged parents, the aging children, all of these lost dreams. We're going to start talking about this. The invisible grief. The invisible grief of what it's like to move. I have moved homes 35, maybe 37 times. Don't ask me how I know how many times I've moved, but I've moved a lot. And some would say, what are you running from, Lisa? What is it that you're running from? At one point, I probably was. I'm not now. But there is a point that we grieve, or I have been grieving the home that I lived in, or the life that I had. There was a point where I was on TV, I was on every talk show imaginable. I was, playing to sold out stadiums, everything else. And then suddenly it stops. And it stopped because I chose it. It stopped because I chose it because my son. And if you've listened to earlier episodes, you know the reasons why. And I decided I needed to step in and be a mom. But that didn't change the fact that there was grief about that. There was massive amounts of grief about my identity. Who was I without that? Who was I when I wasn't in front of people? Yes, I was a mum, but Charlie's at school all the time. Or Charlie would go and see his dad, or Charlie would go to my parents, or Charlie would go here, or Charlie would do that. Or Charlie grew up. And then all of a sudden, I had another child that came. And when she came along, I was just about getting my life back. And again, grief from that moment of like, oh my gosh, I have another child I have to take. And so all of these dreams that I had put on the back burner. I love my kids. I would do anything for my kids. But there was a massive amount, there was that grief that came from the expectation of me doing things. And then when Charlie left home recently, he came back and then he left home again. I knew that this was going to be it. I knew that he was not coming back. There was grief there. My parents live 6,000 miles away from me. I get to see them once a year, maybe. There's grief in not being able to see my parents. There's grief in not being able to see my husband. When he works away and he lives away and he's moving away, he's going off on we're separating again, not separating that way, but we are living apart again as of Thursday for a little while. There's a grief. Some of you might be like, oh, thank God he's gone. Me, it's not. There's a grief because I've gotten used to having him around. Now I'm like, wow. Then there's the grief of the relationships that you thought you should have had. The jobs that you wanted, the creative spaces that you wanted, all of these things, growing distant from partner, you're empty nesting. This is pain. And if we look at it, we are in this place of loss of identity. First of all, if you're my age, you're going through menopause. Now, I will share this again, and I will share this and I'm going to do in the 8th series, I'm going to actually talk about menopause. So that is coming up because I have been in menopause since I was 32, but there's something about hitting your 50s where menopause all of a sudden comes up again because it becomes this topic of everybody around your age talks about menopause. And I have been in menopause for the last 20 something years. And in that moment, it's like being, what are you talking about? Menopause? I dealt with that so last year or so however long ago. But there's an identity shift in everything. There's all of these broken sacrifices that you have actually put your life on hold. And as you've put your life on hold for something or someone, there is a part of us that we've been grieving for us. We're grieving for the dreams that we had as little girls and little boys, the dreams that we wanted that our parents said that we could be anything you ever want to be. I can remember it where my dad used to say, Lisa, you can be anything you ever want to be, Lisa. Do what you want. And truly, I had dreams. I had ambition. I still do. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't give me this moment of like pang of grief or this pang of something. It's really important to understand that these sacrifices, because we put other people in front of us, because we have given other people our power, we are not grieving. And the energetic weight of unprocessed emotion is powerful because when we don't acknowledge this grief, it actually shows up in our body. Our body holds tension. I didn't realize until I used to be on tour all the time how having somebody, physical touch, having somebody massage my body was so important. I'd be on the road for sometimes 3 months. And many of you saw me in when I was playing the gigs, and I was in different arenas, and I was playing out to sell out crowds of like 3, 4, 5,000 people. And at that point, which is great, but what you didn't realize is that there is a woman standing on stage who, yes, she'd been hugged by 1,000 people who were waiting in line to be hugged, and that wasn't about you getting a hug. That was about me having physical touch, having connection with the people, my fan base. That was about me needing you. Because being on the road for that length of time, it's lonely. And my tour manager, Dave and Ryan and John and Mike, and the guys I was on tour with and Jib, they were amazing. We became a community. And I cannot tell you how many times I lent into David or I lent into Ryan, and we would have a hug, because you're craving that. You're craving that physical touch, because the tension gets stored in your body. And here's the other thing, is that when I'm delivering messages and I'm giving the messages and I'm communicating, is I'm also taking on your emotions. I'm taking on your energy. And so I need to have that tension massaged out of my body. And I'm telling you here, the amount of times that grief can cause problems in the body, I've seen it umpteen times. I work with grieving people every single day. Even if a psychic reading, they're grieving, they're wanting to know the potential, the opportunities of things that they have missed, what they should do, what they could do, what things are coming up. And then I've started to notice these correlations where, oh yeah, my mum died, but now I also have asthma. Oh, my kids are empty nesting, but now all of a sudden I have chronic fatigue. I'm like, the effect of your grief is now showing up in your body. It's showing up as fatigue. It's showing up as an autoimmune disease. It's showing up in so many different ways. And when I used to come off tour, that was like a grief in itself. I would come off tour, I would meet thousands and thousands of people, and then I'd be back into isolation. And when I say isolation, I'd be back into a home, and I had to all of a sudden be mom again, or I would have to, everybody wanted a piece of you. Hey, can you come for dinner? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm like, I actually just need to decompress. And at that age, when I was in my late 30s, I had no idea. I had no idea how important it was. And it really was hard. Maintaining relationships was really difficult. And so when we're actually in that place, I want you to know that grief is really important. And as much as we're having fun, there's this moment of like, your body goes into shock. And as I was leaving the tours, we would, it was so funny, because we would say L-Dub. Everyone called me L-Dub. And so it would be L-Dub's out, or Ludlow's out, or Miller's out. And that's what we would say as we were getting on flights. L-Dub signing off, L-Dub out. And as I sat on the plane, you really had to kind of get your brain into thinking, I've got my other life to go back to. And I understand it when my husband said, when he used to go on deployment, he would actually say, Lisa, my life just stopped. It stopped and it picked up where it left off. I knew what that was like, because when I went on tour for 3 months, and sometimes I was away for 3 months, I remember leaving, I get wrapped up into that life, into that, and then I come back into my other life. And I'm like, oh yeah. And so when Chris explained what it was like, I went, oh, I know that. Now, granted, it's a very different experience. And, he was in a war zone. That's a whole different experience. But you get used to how your life is. And so you might actually be feeling this. And what we have to understand is that when we're looking at our body shows up. I will never forget. In fact, it was awful. But I was feeling this grief. I was feeling some form of grief, and I was in Montreal, that's where I was. And I woke up and my whole face had ballooned. It had blown up. There was no reason for it to blow up. I had slept on the sheets that I'd slept on. So it wasn't the detergent. I had used the face wash. I had taken my own. I had not changed any makeup. I had not changed anything. Nothing. And something had happened where I was in a relationship and I was not feeling comfortable about it. And as I was in this relationship, I was like, something's going on, something is really happening. And I felt like there was some form of, I don't know, betrayal, sadness, whatever it was. And I'm going to show you. I remember I was ready. I woke up and I went, oh my gosh. And I went to the bathroom and I felt in my face, I felt something doesn't feel right. And it didn't feel right. And then I looked in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror, and actually we're going to post this picture. And there was my face. It had been blown up. Oh my God. It had been blown up like you have no idea. I can look at it. It was September 12th, 2015. And what had happened is my eyes had blown up, and this was just sadness. My whole face had just blown up, all because of a conversation that I had had the night before. And that is truly what happens. You know, you can say that you're fine on the surface, but your body is saying something else. Your body is showing up in a whole different way. Grief hides in a variety of different spaces. If we look at where grief hides, it hides in your large intestines, which is so anything that is affecting your large intestines, you go into the bathroom, any form of digestion, that's grief. Grief involves in the lungs. Sadness is connected to the heart and the small intestines. If we look at what the throat chakra is, sometimes when we're holding back grief, it hits our throat chakra. So we have all of this stuff. And I am telling you, it is hard work. It is such hard work. And we have to understand. And as I sit here looking at this picture, which I'm going to post, because you'll see a picture of me, I think it was literally, oh gosh, I'm going to see it right now. It was September 11th. I don't even know what I was talking about, but oh my gosh, it was crazy. You can see how my whole face just blew up. And that is the result of me just talking about, and now I'm not actually looking at the date, September 11th. I must have been talking about something about the September 11th. But oh my gosh, it just goes to show. So I'm sort of blown away if I look at this, because the thing is, as I look at it, as I look at what my face was doing, it was really bad. It was really, really bad. I remember having to go to an interview. Oh my God, I had to do an interview. Thankfully, I had the day off and I got some Benadryl. And I was just talking to Chris at the time. We were friends. And I sent him the picture. I sent him the first picture. That's the big picture that you'll see. And he said, go and get some Benadryl. And there's 3 other pictures on here. And this was my healing progression. And the one in the middle was when I was feeling. It was crazy. But that was sadness. Look at how I woke up. Unbelievable. So I'm just going to share with you something. I have done readings for many times. Okay. I have worked with families, and one of the things that I have done is I have worked with many, many families who have been struggling with grief. And I've worked with a lot of families whose the mothers haven't lost their child because they've died, but those children have separated from the family. And those are some of the hardest stories that I've had. And I've got one lady who struggles, and she has, she's been dealing with cancer. And I said to her, I said, do you not ever think that your story with your own child has a part to play in your own cancer journey? And her words were, oh, absolutely. I truly believe that my cancer, my sadness, is definitely linked to my cancer. And it was amazing. Anyway, one of the readings that I gave her, I said, and this is not uncommon. I've got a couple of clients in this place. And I remember saying to her, I said, I actually feel as though they're going to come back into your life. And she said, I don't know how I'm going to cope with that. So anyway, lo and behold, that person or their child came back into their life. And it was such a moment, because she asked for a reading afterwards, or she asked to meet me afterwards. And she said, they told me that I was sorry, that they were sorry. And I said, how did that feel? And she said it was just such a, I'm trying to remember what her words verbatim, but she said it was something along the lines of mixed emotions. She was pleased that they had said sorry, but she wasn't even sure if it was even true. And then then she did say that their child recognized that their illness, or her illness, could have been linked to the fact that she was just snubbed out of this out of their life. And not only their life, their grandchild's life too, because they had children. And she, so she went off, and she did we'd done our reading, and off she went. She came back 6 months later. And I'd often thought about her, and I'd wondered what had happened. And I was like, this could be a real turning point for her. And I said to her, she'd been in my mind. And when she came on the screen, I looked at her and I went, oh my God, how are you? And she said, I'm cancer free. And I'm like, what? She said, I'm cancer free. And she said, I truly believe that having that reconnection with my child, even though it was definitely healing, but we have had to have boundaries. And even though it was a very difficult time, I realized that I was giving my power away to grief. I was giving my power away into an illness that I needed to change. I needed my emotions to change with it. And it was so interesting. And, I'm happy to say that she is thriving and she is doing really, really well. But in that moment, I had to say to her, I see your grief. This is, and even if you don't name your grief, even if you don't want to say it's grief, I want you to know that your energy remembers what your mind wants to forget. Your body remembers what your mind wants to forget. So I'm going to invite you right now, and again, don't do this if you're driving, but I'm going to invite you right now just to take a moment. And I would love you just to close your eyes, take this space, put a hand over your heart, and just let yourself relax. Let yourself completely settle into where you are. And I want you to ask, what are you grieving? What is it that you haven't said out loud? Maybe what dream are you mourning? What version of yourself did you feel that you had to abandon to survive? And just allow yourself just to be. And honor it. Honor it right now. I think when you're honoring it, what you're doing is you're giving it a place. And if you want to write in a journal, if you want to speak it out loud, you can. I want you to notice where you're feeling it in your body and allow yourself to release it. Allow it to be just let it go. And write in a journal. Really allow yourself to have compassion for where you are. We've all got this stuff, but if we're just doing a spiritual bypass and we're just going, oh, that's interesting, what we're not doing is we're not fixing the problem, we're hiding it. And we have to dive deep into it. So I want you to also affirm right now, even if the unspoken grief is worthy of compassion, I'm allowing myself to feel that. I am worthy of compassion. Because you are. You are so worthy of compassion. You are so worthy of healing this place within you. It doesn't have to be all bad. But you have to honor the grief. You have to honor the moment. You have to honor the things of the person that you used to be, the life that you had. Because that's a big thing. I'm going to ask you here just to share your story. You can be as anonymous as you want, but I would love to know what your story is. I would love to know what invisible grief that you've been holding and, what has helped you through it. Maybe there's a poem, maybe there's a quote, maybe there's a DM that somebody has sent you, maybe there was a meme. I would love you to do that because I think it's really important that you share it and somebody else will see that. It's important for you to know that you're allowed to grieve without justification. Just because it's not a big public thing, it doesn't mean it's not real. Your energy holds that memory. The acknowledgement of it is the first release. And remember that healing is not linear. It's not in a straight line. And it's never too late to begin healing. You can be 80 or you can be 8. You could be 90 or you can be 19. Doesn't matter. Your grief is never going to look like anybody else's. It is what it is. You have to honor it without any shame at all. You have to allow yourself to be in that place. And you can use the affirmation if you want let's bring up an affirmation. I honor the grief I carry, seen and unseen. I am worthy of healing. I honor the grief I carry, seen or unseen. I am worthy of healing. Because you are worthy of healing. This is about you allowing yourself to heal. So are you going to or are you not? That's a choice. And as always, hope, healing, and transformation. Hope is something that a lot of people say that they need. And hope is not a wish. It's a decision to believe in something better. And together, we'll find that hope and we're going to make it a reality. So next time in this 8-episode series of the shit that we carry, we're going to be exploring the emotional body and what happens when you finally listen to the messages your body has been trying to send you all along. I'll see you all next time.
Do you feel a whisper in the back of your mind, like the truth is waiting, but it's hard to find? Well, maybe there's magic in the word words she brings. Close your eyes and listen in. Do you want to know everything? What your heart won't say, but your soul can sing. From love to loss and the space between, she's got the light to lift the unseen. Hope, healing, and transformation. Do you want to know everything? Do you want to know everything?
Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, the information shared on this podcast is meant to inspire and support you, but it's not a replacement for personalized advice from a qualified professional. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to tune in next time. Until then, take care and keep believing in something better.